internet. I'm Jabbage. I'm a game developer who's currently making a game called The Beekeeper's Picnic, which is a cosy point-and-click game featuring a retired Sherlock Holmes. This is my cat Malkin, who may stick around or may clear off, especially now I've tried to pick her up. She doesn't like that. You okay? Good. So I thought it'd be fun to have a bit of a Q&A session about the game, and I have dressed up like a bit of an idiot to do that. This is literally glued to my actual face with actual PVA glue. So stick around to the end to watch me attempt to extract the moustache from my upper lip. So I've asked the kind of wider community for the Beekeeper's Picnic, people on Discord and Tumblr, if they have any questions that they would like me to answer. So I'm going to do that. I think Malkin's going to help me, and let's see how far we get. So, Hail and Well Met asks, what games were you inspired by for the Beekeeper's Picnic? Were there any Sherlock Holmes specific games? So in terms of Sherlock Holmes specific games, there's been a lot of really good Sherlock Holmes games out there. Mine is maybe a more kind of cozy approach, but I did really like things like, I really like the Frogwares game Crimes and Punishments, and the way that it lets you sort out your deductions in this kind of physical space, I guess. And even though my game is not quite as complex as that, because the whole kind of joke is that he's solving kind of cozy mysteries, I really liked that concept, and it marries really well with this idea that's actually in the original Sherlock Holmes stories, or at least in the first one, A Study in Scarlet, where Holmes talks about having his brain attic, which is the place where he stores information. So I was like, I have to pinch this off Crimes and Punishments and have this physical space for people to make deductions, for the player to make deductions, and I made it the brain attic, so there you are. Other games, the best Sherlock Holmes point-and-click game that I love is called The Rose Tattoo. I think the writing of The Rose Tattoo is phenomenal, and I love the way it lets you explore just every object. It's really in-depth, and I really wanted that level of depth. So you can actually spend a really long time in the Beekeeper's Picnic just looking at stuff and enjoying exploring that world. And I'm really pleased that people have done that with the demo. I thought that the demo was going to be like 20 minutes and you're done, but because people really enjoy exploring and interacting with just like 4 different places in the demo, it's not it's nothing compared to the final game. But yeah, people spent like over an hour just playing that demo that I thought was quite small, and I put a lot of that down to that depth that was inspired by the Rose Tattoo. In terms of like non-Sherlock Holmes games, I guess maybe like stuff like Stardew Valley, where you really like being in that place, and also there's this sense of community. So in the Beekeeper's Picnic, a lot of it is centred around this small village called Fulworth, where there are all these different characters who you get to know throughout the game, and I kind of wanted that feeling of place. It's not exactly like a real place, it's a sort of idealised kind of countryside location, I guess. But it does also have this little streak of melancholy running through it, because there's this idea that like World War One has ravaged everybody's lives, and now they're kind of rebuilding and recovering. So again, I think there are kind of games like Stardew Valley that also kind of have that slight edge to them. Hello, Malkin, you've returned. Excellent. There was also a lot of inspiration from non-Sherlock Holmes games, so I've been reading a lot of like... No, not the moustache, Malkin. Not the tash. Okay, you're going to sit there. Okay, good cat, sit there. I've been reading a lot of like hope punk fiction and solar punk fiction. I was really enjoying Becky Chambers' Psalm for the Wild Built and A Prayer for the Crown Shy, which are two novellas that she writes about a world where it's kind of a utopian world. It's a post scarcity world. It's a very environmentally conscious world. But even though that they've sort of got through the kind of traumas that we have in the 21st century to do with industrialization and war, they still have interpersonal struggles, and they're still dealing with the ramifications of being in a utopia that wasn't always a utopia. And I wanted to explore some of those feelings through this game, so it sort of has that kind of hope punk edge to it, even though it's not sci-fi. And also on a similar note, actually, I was kind of inspired by sort of. Okay, no, Malkin, no, come on, no, don't. People don't want to see that, my dear. No. I was inspired a bit by what I wanted Star Trek Picard to be. I really wished that Star Trek Picard had been a. I wanted to see Picard solving cozy mysteries on Earth in that sort of utopian Star Trek world. And we didn't get that with Star Trek Picard. I knew we were never going to get that. I can't own Captain Picard, but Sherlock Holmes is public domain, so that was another kind of inspiration. Okay, Shepherd to the Stars asks, have you picked up any new skills in the course of working on the game? Have I ever? So my background is I've made comics. That's generally my thing. I've done a lot of comics for museums and charities and sort of educational groups. Games I was new to, so the programming. I'm quite a techie person, but I've never programmed a computer game before, so that was completely new. Pixel art was something that is fairly new to me, and something that I've spent a lot of time gradually getting better at. It's really interesting to compare the very first proof of concept demo that I put together like about a year ago with the current version of the game. I think the quality of the artwork has just gone so yeah, that was a big thing, and just game design is such a huge area as well, and I know I'm still learning a lot to do with that. I ended up actually being invited to go to a conference in London called Mix, which was all about multimedia storytelling and digital storytelling, and yeah, I was like learning so much there, and it was wonderful, and I got to showcase the Beekeeper's Picnic, and it was like standing room only, and I was slightly terrified, but it was all great in the end. So yeah, I've just learned so much, and even just having that experience, I got to go to the British Library and speak to people about games and my game and the challenges that I'd had and my ideas about narrative and games. So it's been amazing. It's been so fun, and I've loved it. Helen Pepsi asks, what are some of your favourite obscure details from the canon that you've included in the game? The canon, of course, being Sherlock Holmes, the books. Let me think. I mean, like the stuff like when I did Baker Street, I did the Baker Street background. I try to include just everything that ever gets mentioned that is in Baker Street. So there is the jackknife. There is one of the pokers is bent because in the story of the Speckled Band, a character called Sidney Roylott comes along and bends the poker. So that was there. What else? Oh, there's Dr. Watson's gasogene, which you will have to play the demo to find out what a gasogene is if you do not know. I mean, another kind of fun, obscure detail, or let me think, the VR in Bullets on the Wall. You know, I try to include all of these things that get mentioned like once, that they are in Baker Street. What else? I mean, I don't want to spoil too much. There are some characters that appear in the canon who show up again. So I had to look up about them and kind of pull on little details to do with them. Um, as well as the canon as well, I've tried to include loads of references to like as many adaptations as I can. So there's things like in Baker Street they have a painting of the Reichenbach Falls, which is a reference to the Granada TV series. There's a Great Mouse Detective reference. There's references to... I'm not sure there's a reference to the BBC Sherlock series anymore. There was, and I think the thing that it was in got cut, so yeah, perhaps I'll have to try and add one of those in. Yeah, I've just tried to put... There's a reference to the Sherlock Holmes series of books. That's pretty obscure. So yeah, lots and lots and lots of fun things for fans that I've put in there. But I was also quite pleased from people playtesting the demo, even people who aren't Sherlock Holmes fans are enjoying it and aren't feeling like they're being left out. So that's reassuring to me that I think the balance is hopefully okay. Okie dokie. Now we've got Lily Wolf Grey has a series of questions, and they're all really good ones. So, what was my favourite part of making the game and my least favourite? So I think my favourite was probably designing the locations. I found that really fun, putting together these pixel art backgrounds. It gave me an excuse to visit real places. So there's things like Holmes's kitchen is really inspired by the kitchen in a real house, a real kind of arts and crafts era house called Winterbourne Winterbourne House and Gardens. So if you go there, you can compare it with the kitchen in the game. It's kind of the same. And yeah, just getting to fill those environments full of interesting little details. I really quite enjoyed doing that. My least favourite part is always just finding bugs and going through that kind of process of making the game robust, because it's like you fix one bug and it makes another bug happen. And there's also the phenomenon where I feel like I have tested every possible action within this game, and then you hand it over to the playtesters and they do something you never thought they would do and it breaks, you know. So that's probably my least favourite part of making the game. It has a kind of satisfaction to it though. Like with the demo, there was one point where I was like, this demo is just never it's gonna break, it's gonna be terrible, I'm never gonna catch all the bugs. And I'm not saying there are no bugs, there probably are bugs, but I'm not finding that lots of people are reporting them, so I think I've got away with that one. And going through that process for the actual game is going to be, that's going to be good. I mean, talking about skills I've learned, another one was like animation and walk cycles. I find that equal parts sort of my favourite and my least favourite. There's something really exciting about seeing like a walk cycle come together and the characters sort of come to life. I especially like doing kind of nice bouncy walk cycles. But also, if it goes wrong and you're like, why does this not look right? It can be quite hard to fix it. So, yeah, that's a bit of both. Favourite and least favourite. I've touched on this one a little bit already, but what inspired me to make the game? So I think like a lot of people, I always wanted to make a game since being quite little. And so that was the first thing, was just I really wanted to make a game. I particularly loved point and click games and adventure games. They were the ones that always really grabbed me. And I just was really enamoured by this idea. As I was saying, like, perhaps my thoughts about Star Trek Picard had got me wanting like a cosy, retired hero who is solving cosy mysteries. And another fun thing that inspired it is there's the Granada Sherlock Holmes series, which was made in the late 80s and 90s, starring Jeremy Brett and Edward Hardwicke a bit later on, and David Burke as his two Watsons. He gets two of them. And they took footage of Jeremy Brett and Edward Hardwicke all dressed up for retirement, to be keeping bees. And nobody knows why, as far as I know. Like, these photographs exist of them in the costumes, but it wasn't used in an episode. As far as we know, it wasn't used for publicity. It's like this really fun lost media mystery. And I just kind of thought that sort of inspired me a little bit as well. I liked the idea of, let me fill in that gap. And also just being inspired by really enjoying the Sherlock Holmes canon and wanting to explore this fun little tidbit that he retires to go keep bees. Arthur Conan Doyle wrote that. And I think ever since he's written it, everybody, so many people have come along and been like interested in that. Sherlock Holmes goes and becomes a beekeeper. Okay. And I kind of wanted to add my own take to that and my own thoughts on that. A lot of people ask me like, oh, is it based on that film with Ian McKellen in? And it's like, no, we were both inspired by the same thing. It's tonally quite different. I do like that film, but it's quite a hard thing to watch, especially because it kind of came out when I was dealing with my own family being older, and so my game is kind of the total opposite of that. It's much more feel-good and much more cozy. So yeah, various things inspired me. What's a simple action that was the hardest to program? I'll tell you one that I've actually just given up on programming, and I'm really sorry. Perhaps one day I will figure out how to do it. But it was just petting the dog. So Sherlock Holmes has a dog called Toby the Third, and it's like a thing in games, right? You have to make it so you can pet the dog. But because Toby's your companion and he follows you around and he kind of has he's off doing his own thing a lot, programming it so Toby would come and be in front of you and let you pet him, and then like the whole game would grind to a halt, and then getting it so Toby would stay instead of just wandering off again. And in the end I was like, this isn't a game about petting dogs, I'm just going to leave this for now. So that's something simple that I've kind of given up on programming. Other things you might expect with it being a Sherlock Holmes game, there's a fair amount of disguises going on and costumes. They're quite hard to program, because then it's like, do I let you wear this costume absolutely everywhere in the game? If I don't, then when do you take it off? Do you need a separate animation for every time you're doing an action and you're wearing this costume? I give the player a choice of costumes as well. So anything to do with disguises and costumes winds me up in terms of the programming. What else have we got? So Tadhana writes, how far from the first draft is your game now? I.e. the demo, the one that's been released, I guess. Or what parts of the first draft made it in and what didn't? So the big thing that has gone, I have killed my darling with regards to it, was the original prologue that I had when I first planned the game. And actually when I first programmed the game, I sort of started with the prologue thinking, that's a nice discrete thing, let me program it. And there was nothing really that wrong with it. It had Holmes and Watson younger on a case. The idea was that it was introducing those characters and their relationship to each other. There wasn't really anything wrong with it. It just didn't fit with the rest of the game and the overall tone I wanted to give. It was a little bit too dark, I think, and it just introduced a lot of elements that just would then never come up again. And I liked it, and I'd spent a lot of time programming it, and it worked. Didn't have final artwork, so it was like it's not like I could just hand it over to you to play. But it was quite far along, and I just thought I need a different prologue. So it's been replaced with the current prologue that you can find in the game, which is quite fun because it lets you be in Baker Street and do things in Baker Street, and it's much more cozy, and it just sort of matches the story that I'm telling. The story now is bookended quite nicely, I think. So I'm happy to have got something new, a new prologue. I kind of miss the old one. So that's something that didn't make it. I mean, what else was in the original? A lot of it was more tweaks than cutting things from the very first original proof of concept demo. A lot of changes in like user interface. I redid a lot of artwork. But yeah, most things. There were some things where like characters' relationships to each other changed. Because there was one notable thing where I found out that I had to change characters' relationships to each other because Arthur Conan Doyle said one of them didn't have any family, and I'd given them family, and I was like, do I care? Do I not care? I kind of got around it, so... I need to show off my poster. Okay. So yeah. The game, the core elements are still there. I think Holmes's house has remained pretty much the same. A lot of the conversations that were in the original proof of concept are still carried over. But yeah, there's lots and lots and lots and lots that has changed. Lily Wolf Grey also asks, how did you handle making the game as the only dev on it? I think treating it as a sort of marathon, not a race, and having a community that I was building has really helped. So I share a lot of my development of the game. Did my cat just sneeze? Did you just sneeze? She just sneezed. So I have a really nice community that I've been able to share things with. It's always really hard as a developer, like, do you share things too early? And, like, does that create a buzz that then you lose when it's actually time to release the game? But I just thought, you know what, I want to share the journey of making it, and I don't really regret that, because that community has helped keep me going and make it feel like I'm not the only person developing the game. So, that's helped a lot. Okay, Giohari asks, how long has it been from I should make a game where to the Kickstarter? I think it was like last May or June, maybe? So 18 months-ish. And the way that I did it was that I made a little proof of concept for myself, took a few months to do that, and then went into making the main game. It's not actually been that long. And it was a sort of project where, like, I don't know if you're like me and you kind of start projects almost knowing, like, I'm not going to really make a game. That's a huge task. But I just found that I was really enjoying it, so I just kept doing it because I was loving doing it. It's on the one hand not been that long, but on the other hand that's quite a large chunk of your life to devote to something fairly niche. So I'm really, really happy that it's had the warmth and affection that it has had from a really nice, small, dedicated community. So Danny asks, what was my favourite part about writing the scenario? Oh gosh. I really like, all conversations, I really like coming up with what Sherlock Holmes would think of various things. I really like writing the dialogue when you get him to do something a bit wacky. I really like sprinkling in jokes in there. In terms of the writing, I think the dialogue is fun and the descriptors are fun when it's like just adding in, what happens if you make him talk to, Watson's foot or something. They're always fun. Do I have a favourite NPC other than Watson? In terms of characters that are actually from Sherlock Holmes, I really love Mycroft. I really like that you can phone Mycroft in the game and he will talk to you and give you advice. And and that he's off in his own retirement, which just basically looks exactly like his working life, but instead of going to Whitehall, he just looks out his window all day. So yeah, big Mycroft fan. In terms of like my original characters, I really like Tilda, who's a little girl who wants to be a naturalist. Because I really like it when like old people characters and kid characters have a bond. Because I think sometimes we treat old people and there are young people in society similarly, in the sense that we tend to discount them and discredit them. And I think they can have a lot of synergy with each other. So I really like her relationship with Holmes and how he's like, he's not like, he's more like, he's her friend, you know, and he's her mentor to some extent. And he's sort of a friend of her family as well. He's like their weird neighbour. And they sort of bond over having niche special interests. My other favourite character is called Sanjay. He's another kid who lives in the village, and I like him because he is the Sherlock Holmes fan in the game. So he's kind of representing the fans and giving all the reactions that a fan would give to meeting Sherlock Holmes, and which is quite funny because it's like he knows more about, you know, the cases and Sherlock Holmes' life than Sherlock Holmes does. Like he wears a deerstalker and Holmes is like, I don't know why he's wearing that, you know. So I like them. Who else do I like? I actually really like as well, there's a woman who runs the village fete, whose name is Fanny Whitlock, and I just think she's a lot of fun to write because she's really obsessed with the rules of the fete. And she's sort of got this secret soft sensitive side that she quite likes mystery stories. She likes a series of mystery stories featuring a Liechtensteinian detective called Caspar Hassler. And her favourite of these is called 5 Deaths in a Balloon. And I laugh at my own joke every time I play it because I just find 5 Deaths in a Balloon to be really funny. So yeah, they're my favourite NPCs. Okay, so Bacon Pancakes asks, did I always know the project would be the scale that it is, or did it start off smaller in my mind? My aim was always to keep it really small, and I'm pleased that that was my aim because what I thought was very small isn't super small. But I think my experience with making comics, whenever people come to me and say, like, I want to make a comic, where should I start? My advice was always, like, make something with 12 pages. Make something with 6 pages. Make something with 12 pages. Make something with 24 pages. What I tended to advise people not to do is to launch straight into writing your 300-page epic. Maybe structure it so that those first 24 pages feed into that, but I think if you're new to something, it really pays off to chunk it and to take it easy and to give yourself that experience of finishing a thing. So the way that I did that in this project, because I had a really specific idea of the game I wanted to make, but I did want to have that practice of going through the whole development cycle, was I made what I called my proof of concept demo, which was just a few rooms and a sort of basic puzzle, and I could release that and get feedback on it, and I went through the whole cycle with that. So, but I knew from there that I wanted to try and keep things modest. So yeah, I think, was it smaller in my mind ever? I think it's more that I've just realised as I've gone on that because I've tried to allow the user choice, that adds a lot of work. It makes the game thicker rather than kind of longer. I think that thickness has built quite slowly as I've thought. Sometimes I was tempted to cut things out and not give the user that same level of choice. Just think to myself, okay, look, just keep it simple. Don't, let them choose to do this or this. Just give them the one choice. But actually, I think for it to be a good game, you should have that choice. So there are things like there are different characters that you can enlist to help you, different disguises you can wear, a few different kind of moral choices or approaches to puzzles. that's made the game thicker. I think that was something that I added as I went along because I realised I needed that to make a good game. I think I want to take this moustache off my face, and that's all of the questions that I've had. I'm going to do it. Are you ready? Okay, ready? Oh, that wasn't so bad. I think it was coming off anyway. Oh, and this is too big for me, so it's simply a matter of cranial capacity. It's a bit too big. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. If you're interested in the Beekeeper's Picnic, you can wishlist it on Steam. There is a demo on Steam that you can play, and at the time of recording there is also a Kickstarter campaign ongoing. Met our funding goal, which is brilliant, but every little helps, and it would be great to get shoot for the stars with that campaign. There are lots of goodies available if you back it as well that won't be available later, things like an art book, the soundtrack. There are these amazing like digital crafts that you can make, including like fashion dolls and postcards, and there's even a chance to get your character in the game. You can design an NPC, or to be a portrait on Holmes's wall. So lots of fun opportunities through that Kickstarter. I'm now going to get up and turn the camera off. Okay then. Thank you for watching. Perhaps I should like... Right. Okay then.